Right now, in an economy on the edge of collapse, most people don't realize they're paying full price for food that's barely real. Across America, seafood chains are quietly cutting corners, thinning the fillets, padding the plates with breading and sauce, and serving you nostalgia instead of nourishment. What looks like dinner is often a manufactured illusion built to survive inflation, not feed you. As prices climb and supply chains strain, you need to know the truth about what's really on your plate before the next crisis hits and even fake fish becomes unaffordable. Number 1. Red Lobster's Endless Shrimp. For decades, Red Lobster meant something special. A night out, a celebration, a little taste of the ocean wrapped in melted butter and nostalgia. But in today's economy, that endless shrimp deal that once felt generous has quietly become a mirror of the larger crisis we're living through. A symbol of how illusions replace value when money gets tight. Behind the kitchen doors, former servers describe what's really endless: the shortcuts. The shrimp used in those famous promotions are often the smallest, cheapest varieties available. Imported, frozen in bulk, thawed in plastic tubs, and tossed into fryers by the hundreds. The smell of garlic butter covers the truth. These aren't plump, ocean-fresh shrimp. They're pink, breaded fragments designed to stretch profits while convincing you you're feasting. Customers have noticed the pattern. The first plate arrives fast, golden, and tempting, but each refill takes longer. 10 minutes, 15, 20. By the time the next basket arrives, you're full of biscuits, salt, and waiting. That delay isn't bad service, it's a strategy. The longer you wait, the less you eat, and the more endless the shrimp becomes. For them, not for you. Nutritionists warn that a single round of these shrimp platters can pack more sodium than a full day's recommended intake, especially when drenched in garlic butter or cocktail sauce. What looks like indulgence is actually a health risk hidden behind marketing language. Think about what that means in the bigger picture. As inflation rises and supply chains tighten, corporations don't lower prices. They redefine value. They give you less protein, more starch, more oil, and call it the same meal. Endless becomes a distraction, a way to sell time and salt instead of substance. It's the same playbook being used across industries. Shrink the product, raise the price, and rely on nostalgia to keep customers quiet. For older customers, especially retirees watching both their blood pressure and their budgets, that quiet swap is dangerous. You walk away feeling full but not nourished. You think you got a deal, but what you really bought was a clever illusion. And when the next wave of economic strain hits, when real shrimp, fish, or beef becomes even harder to afford, those illusions will multiply everywhere. So here's the move. Don't buy endless. Buy real. Skip the deal. Buy frozen raw shrimp by size count. Cook it at home once a week, salt it yourself, flavor it honestly. Because in a collapsing food economy, the only endless thing left is deception, unless you decide to stop feeding it. Number 2, McDonald's Filet-O-Fish. For millions of people, the Filet-O-Fish isn't just a sandwich, it's a ritual. A soft bun, a square fillet, a dab of tartar sauce, half a slice of cheese barely hanging on. It's warm, familiar, and oddly comforting. But beneath that nostalgia lies a quiet truth. What you're eating isn't what it used to be. Once made from fresh North Atlantic cod, the Filet-O-Fish quietly shifted to Alaskan pollock, one of the most mass-produced, industrially processed fish species in the world. It's cheaper, milder, easier to shape, and far from the hearty, flaky fish the sandwich originally promised. Former McDonald's supply chain employees say the transformation happened slowly, deliberately. The fish isn't filleted, it's minced, blended, and pressed into blocks, then machine-cut into perfect squares. These little frozen fish bricks travel across the world before ever touching a fryer. The breading adds weight, the bun adds bulk, the sauce adds memory. What's left of the fish, the part you think you're paying for, it is just the skeleton of a once honest meal. McDonald's mastered something powerful: emotional engineering. The Filet-O-Fish is designed not to taste new, but to taste familiar. You're not buying flavor, you're buying comfort. In an uncertain economy, that comfort becomes its own kind of addiction. You eat it because it reminds you of a time when things were stable, Friday nights, childhood drives, or the simplicity of a dollar menu. But the reality is the sandwich is now a highly processed imitation of the memory it represents. Nutritionally, it's not a disaster, but it's not what you think either. High sodium, low omega-3s, minimal real fish texture. And because the bun is steamed instead of toasted, the whole sandwich melts into a soft, uniform bite that hides what's actually inside. Food scientists call this mouthfeel masking, when texture uniformity disguises cheapness. The company calls it consistency. But what you're really experiencing is controlled blandness, crafted to be just satisfying enough to keep you coming back without noticing what's missing. This isn't just about one sandwich. It's about a system. When profit margins tighten and global fish stocks decline, corporations don't warn you. They rebrand the same product, change the species, and rely on your nostalgia to fill in the gaps. The picture on the box hasn't changed, and that's enough to keep billions flowing. So ask yourself, when was the last time your food felt real? Because in times of economic collapse, memory is the easiest product to sell. The Filet-O-Fish isn't a meal, it's marketing dressed as comfort. Don't let a brand tell your taste buds what the ocean should taste like. Go to the source. Buy the filet, not the fantasy. Number 3, Popeyes seafood. Crunch. That sound has become the anthem of modern fast food. That first bite that promises satisfaction, comfort, and fullness. At Popeyes, it's practically a language. The golden coating, the crisp shatter, the glisten of oil under fluorescent light. It all tells you something you want to believe, that what's inside must be just as good. But what if that sound, that irresistible crunch, has quietly replaced the very thing it was meant to protect? Former cooks from Popeyes have said it plainly. The seafood here isn't generous, it's stretched thin. Shrimp are chosen for size, not flavor, and fish fillets are sliced almost paper thin before being drowned in batter. One employee once joked, "It's a 2-bite fish with a 4-bite crust." Beneath the coating, there's often less fish than you'd expect. Sometimes barely enough to taste before the breading takes over. You get crunch, salt, and heat, but very little of the sea. The sauces do the heavy lifting, and the sides fill the space. Fries, biscuits, rice. Cheap calories that build the illusion of a complete meal. It's easy to ignore. The meal still feels satisfying in the moment, still triggers the same dopamine rush that keeps people coming back. But after an hour, when the fullness fades, something deeper lingers. Not hunger exactly, but a quiet recognition that you've been fed, not nourished. That's how most systems of convenience work during crisis. They teach you to crave the signal instead of the substance. The crunch becomes a kind of currency. Sensory wealth in a world where real nutrition keeps shrinking. And yet, this isn't just about a sandwich or a basket of shrimp. It's about how easily we trade quality for immediacy when times get hard. Inflation doesn't just raise prices, it lowers expectations. Chains know that customers will still pay if they feel something. Texture, salt, comfort, even when the core ingredient is disappearing. Breaded illusions thrive when attention is scarce and trust is worn thin. Maybe that's the quiet warning buried in every crispy bite. When a culture begins to prize sound over substance, appearance over honesty, it's not just food that gets hollow. It's everything. The meal ends, the satisfaction fades, and the question remains. When did we decide that noise was enough? You can't live on crunch alone. And if you keep mistaking it for nourishment, one day you'll wake up realizing that fullness was never the same as being fed. Number 4. Olive Garden's seafood pastas. There was a time when seafood pasta felt like a celebration. The aroma of garlic and olive oil, the gleam of shrimp nestled among ribbons of noodles, a sense that you were indulging in something generous and honest. But step into an Olive Garden today, and that same bowl tells a quieter, heavier story. The shrimp are fewer, the scallops smaller, and the sauce thicker. As if the restaurant is trying to comfort you into forgetting how much less you're actually getting. Inflation doesn't always show up on price tags. Sometimes it hides in the ratio of cream to protein. Former employees admit the shift wasn't sudden but gradual, almost imperceptible. Shrimp counts quietly dropped from 8 to 5 per serving, while the pasta portions crept upward. It's the kind of change no one notices until someone points it out, and by then it's too late. Your expectations have already adjusted. Stir it in deep so it looks like more, one longtime server recalled being told. That phrase could double as a metaphor for how corporations manage public perception in hard times. Keep things mixed, keep them moving, and no one will see the absence beneath the surface. The sauces, once meant to accentuate the seafood, now dominate it. Alfredo, scampi, marinara, all thickened, salted, and sweetened to disguise the missing freshness. What should be a delicate balance between ocean and land has become a comfort equation. Fat plus starch equals satisfaction, at least for a while. But it's the kind of fullness that fades quickly, leaving you tired instead of nourished. You walk away heavy but unsatisfied, certain you ate too much and somehow not enough. There's a quiet sadness in that. People don't go to Olive Garden expecting fine dining. They go seeking warmth, predictability, the illusion of abundance. But illusions cost something. Every time we accept more sauce and less substance, we send a message, that we'd rather be comforted than told the truth. And in a fragile economy, that mindset spreads far beyond the table. It teaches us to tolerate small declines, to overlook missing pieces, to say it's fine when we know it's not. So the next time that creamy bowl lands in front of you, ask yourself, what are you really being fed? Seafood or sentiment? Because the real hunger most people feel now isn't for another helping of pasta. It's for honesty, for something that tastes like what it claims to be, and for the courage to say when enough has become less. Number 5, Captain D's. For many families, Captain D's used to be a small luxury. A paper box full of golden fish, warm hush puppies, and that familiar smell of salt and oil drifting through the car. It felt honest, comforting, almost homemade. But behind that nostalgic glow, the meal itself has changed. What once stood for simplicity now stands for substitution. The white fish you see on the menu isn't one species at all. It's a revolving cast. Cod, pollock, hoki, tilapia, chosen not for quality but for price and availability. In a world of shortages and cost-cutting, even identity has become negotiable. Former employees say they were trained never to name the fish when customers asked. Just call it mild and flaky, they were told, because certainty costs money. Each box of fillets arrives pre-breaded and frozen, labeled by lot number, not species. The workers fry it, plate it, and pass it off with a smile. Not because they're hiding something malicious, but because the system has already rewritten what fish means. The word became elastic, stretching to cover whatever global supply chain could still deliver. And the customers, trusting the brand they grew up with, never question it. That's how quiet erosion works, not through deception, but through fatigue. You stop expecting clarity. You tell yourself it doesn't matter as long as it tastes familiar. But the portions have shrunk too, the fillets thinner, the coating thicker, the box carefully arranged to look full. Fries, hush puppies, slaw, cheap fillers piled high to hide the smallness underneath. You walk away thinking you got a deal, but all you really bought was air wrapped in crunch. One retired manager confessed, "We shape the breading so it looks big, but the fish inside is half what it used to be." That line could describe more than just fast food. It could describe the economy itself. Everywhere we're being sold appearances, numbers that look stable, products that look full, meals that look generous. But inside, the substance is shrinking. The trust is thinning. Captain D's doesn't feel dishonest so much as symbolic. It's what happens when a business learns that perception is cheaper than integrity. The name, the logo, the marketing still whisper, seafood? But the ocean's gone missing somewhere in the middle. And if we keep rewarding that illusion, we'll end up like the meal itself. Dressed up to look complete while quietly starving for the truth underneath. Number 6, Chili's fish tacos. Fish tacos once carried a kind of quiet poetry. A warm tortilla, a squeeze of lime, the scent of something freshly grilled. They felt spontaneous, honest, coastal. But at Chili's, that same dish has been refitted for an economy of shortcuts. The promise of freshness is still printed on the menu, still bright in the photos. But what arrives on the plate often feels like a memory of what fresh used to mean. The fish isn't grilled to order, it's thawed, reheated, and disguised under layers of sauce and slaw. A former cook described it bluntly. Cover it, sauce it, make it look alive. The deception isn't malicious, it's mechanical. Every taco must look identical in every location, which means the fish can't be wild or hand-cut. It must be pressed, frozen, uniform. That sameness comes at a cost. The texture goes first, then the flavor. A retired mechanic who ordered them on a Tuesday said the tacos tasted like sauce on a sponge. The tortillas were limp, the fish so thin it collapsed between his fingers. He still finished the meal, but what lingered wasn't satisfaction. It was disbelief. How did something that looked so right feel so hollow? That's the trick of modern dining. When visual perfection replaces authenticity, your brain fills in the rest. You taste what you expect to taste, not what's really there. But with every meal like this, you lose a little more of your sensitivity to quality, to effort, to honesty. The flavor of real fish fades from memory, replaced by salt and texture and marketing language like coastal inspired or freshly prepared. Fresh becomes an adjective of convenience, not truth. There's a subtle emotional toll to this pattern. You stop trusting your own senses. You start accepting substitution as normal. In a world where everything's polished and prepackaged, disappointment becomes easy to ignore. That's how inflation hides, not just in prices, but in expectations quietly lowered. You don't notice what's missing because you're too busy being reassured. But here's the irony. People don't order fish tacos because they crave comfort. They order them because they want to feel something real. Lightness, brightness, a connection to something that once felt alive. When that too becomes imitation, what's left? The meal fills your stomach but empties something else. Your trust, your curiosity, your belief that simple food can still be honest. And maybe that's the most dangerous hunger of all. Getting used to what's fake and forgetting what real ever tasted like. Number 7. Applebee's fish and chips. There's a certain comfort in ordering something you've known your whole life. Fish and chips, for example, carries the weight of tradition, the warmth of the plate, the crisp of the batter, the scent of vinegar rising in steam. It's a working man's meal, simple and proud. But at Applebee's, that legacy has been quietly repackaged. The menu still shows the golden fillet, the lemon wedge, the fries piled high, but what lands on your table feels strangely hollow, like a photograph pretending to be food. The first bite delivers crunch, the second confusion. Something's missing, but it takes a moment to name it. Former Applebee's cooks describe the system with weary precision. The fish doesn't arrive fresh or even hand-cut. It's pre-breaded, frozen, portioned by weight for efficiency. The fryers are programmed for exact cook times, and the plating is mathematical. Fish at the center, fries fanned out to make the portion look bigger. We stack the fries high so people think it's a full meal, one-line cook admitted. It's a trick of angles, not abundance. Inside the breading, the fillet is thinner than ever, soft to the point of mush, its texture collapsing before you can even lift your fork. Customers notice even if they don't say it out loud. One retired nurse told me, "It looked right, but the second I touched it, it fell apart." Another diner said it was crispy but hollow, like biting into a shell. That feeling, that faint betrayal wrapped in salt and nostalgia, lingers longer than the meal itself. It's not just disappointment, it's recognition. Recognition that something you trusted to stay the same has quietly changed, and not for the better. This is what happens when mass production meets memory. When efficiency replaces craft and speed replaces soul. You can't mass-produce care, but you can simulate it well enough that most people stop noticing. In times of economic pressure, that simulation becomes policy. Cut portions, boost breading, raise the illusion. The result? 1,000 identical plates that look like tradition but taste like compromise. Fish and chips used to be about comfort that came from honesty, food that fed both hunger and pride. Now it's just another product optimized for consistency. But consistency isn't the same as quality. What once symbolized stability has become a mirror of decline. A reminder that even the simplest pleasures can be quietly re-engineered until they resemble nothing but their own advertisement. The meal ends and you're left staring at what used to mean something, wondering when good enough became the only standard left. Number 8. Long John Silver's. Long John Silver's used to feel like an escape. Not fast food exactly, but a small ritual. The vinegar bottles on the tables, the smell of fried batter, the hush puppies that stayed warm in their corners. It all spoke to a time when even cheap meals carried a trace of care. But somewhere along the way, the sound of that golden crunch became louder than the fish itself. Former employees described fillets so thin they could fold in half, puffed up by batter that ballooned in the fryer. Crispy outside, one cook said, but sometimes barely any fish inside. The crunch, once a texture, became camouflage. That shift didn't happen overnight. It crept in quietly, hidden beneath the branding of nostalgia, the pirate theme, the ocean blue boxes, the friendly promise of hand-battered goodness. Yet what most customers are handed now is air-shaped to look like abundance. One retired trucker described his last meal there as a crunchy pocket with fish fumes. It looked full, it felt heavy, but 3 bites later it was gone. That's not an accident. The company knows the psychology of presentation. Visual fullness triggers satisfaction even when the body remains underfed. The tray looks generous, so the hunger feels unreasonable. This is how the illusion of value survives economic collapse. When inflation rises, they don't double the price. They double the breading. When fish becomes expensive, they sell you crunch as comfort. It's the same strategy everywhere now. Create noise, texture, and familiarity, and people will stop asking what's missing. We've been trained to measure worth by volume, not integrity. And in that exchange, the real substance, whether it's fish or truth, slowly disappears. Nutritional studies back this up. In a typical 2-piece Long John Silver's meal, more than half the calories come from batter and oil. What's left of the fish is barely enough to justify the name. Yet, because it still smells like what we remember, most people don't question it. The mind fills the gap between memory and reality, mistaking imitation for comfort. That's the quiet tragedy of it. Not that the food is bad, but that it's hollow. The meal ends, the box empties, and all you've really consumed is nostalgia engineered for profit. In a world where everything real is shrinking, wages, portions, trust, maybe the loudest crunch of all is the sound of something genuine disappearing, one bite at a time. What's happening in these restaurants isn't just about food. It's a reflection of everything around us. The fish got thinner, the breading got thicker, and somewhere in between, honesty slipped quietly off the plate. Each chain hides the same truth. In a collapsing economy, illusion is cheaper than integrity. But you don't have to swallow it. Learn to question, to look closer, to demand better. Because survival isn't just about stockpiling supplies. It's about protecting your standards. The next crisis won't just test your pantry. It'll test your awareness. Don't let comfort cost you clarity.